Good evening, everybody. I'm Pat Edwards, the chair of the Planning Committee, and I just need to read you a few bits of information at the beginning. There's no fire alarm planned for this evening. Should the alarm sound, please leave by the nearest available emergency exit. The two exits are through the glass door behind you to my left and through the double doors onto the riverside behind that way. Don't use the exit at the back to my right, there's one behind me, because access is currently restricted by the works outside. Please meet at the Tower House car park. Members of the public are welcome to make their own recordings of the meeting using whatever non-disruptive methods they think are suitable. I'd like to remind everyone present at the meeting that it's being minuted, recorded, filmed and made available to view in live and archive form via the Council's website. If you're seated in the public gallery, it's possible the cameras may capture your image. If you wish to avoid being filmed, it's recommended you make a member of staff aware who can direct you to where to sit. The Westgate Garden gates on the riverside are locked at dusk, so members of the public must leave the Guildhall by the side exit, which is behind the glass door there. Do we have any apologies tonight?
We have no apologies tonight, Chair.
Thank you. Move on to declarations of interest then. Lauren, could you read out the generic declaration of interests before we take any individual ones? Thank you.
All or some councillors may have received correspondence from or spoken with applicants, agents, supporters or objectors, and some of the public speakers may also be known to members of the committee due to their work as councillors. Neither circumstance prevents councillors from participating in the meeting. However, any councillor who considers they do not have an open mind in respect of any item on the agenda should not participate in the meeting when the relevant item is to be discussed.
Are there any individual declarations of interest? Councillor, lots. Okay, Councillor Bothwell, Councillor Jones, Councillor Mackenzie and Councillor Buckman, in that order. Thank you.
Thank you, Chair. Yes, I know the person who lives opposite the site under item 7, so I'll withdraw during that item. I don't feel I could have an open mind.
Just to clarify, if you don't have an open mind, is that what you're saying?
Yes. Yeah.
Thank you, that's fine. That's which item was it again, did you say? Bollockston Road. Thank you. We'll give you, shout me if I don't remember, but we'll give you a chance to leave the room for that one. Thank you. Councillor Jones.
Thank you, Chair. Just on item 7, I'm one of the ward councillors for that ward, and I'm open-minded, so we're fine.
Thank you for the declaration. Councillor Mackenzie.
On the last item, the Hoplands application, I'm the ward councillor, and I put out a call for residents to send their views to me as the ward councillor, but I retain an open mind.
Councillor Buckman.
I'm a member of item number 10, so I'll sit out that one. Cheers.
And Councillor Prentice.
Thank you, Chair. The item on 43 Warwick Road, I am a ward councillor for that ward.
Thank you. There are 8 public speakers tonight who we heard immediately after officer's presentation, except on the first item. On the first item, we're going to discuss an issue that's arisen about the site visit before we have any speakers, to give them the options that will give them. But we'll talk about that when we get there. The first next item is to agree the minutes of a couple of meetings. So the minutes of the meeting of the 18th of June and the 24th of June. Do we have any amendments on either of those? So the second one was particularly quite a lengthy wording of that refusal. So I just wanted to check, no. Then can we confirm both by general assent, please? Thank you, everybody. Lovely. I'm glad we got that right. we now move on to application number CA 24-01925, Flat 5, Truscott House, 27 Queen's Road. And we'll take the officer presentation and get the up-to-date position on this first. Thank you. And Stevie Andrews will present that.
Thank you, Chair. Right, so this is an application that the councillors will remember from back in March when the application was first reported to the Planning Committee. So this is an apartment block along Queen's Road. It occupies the corner plot between Queen's Road and St Anne's Road. So the application, it's a retrospective application, and it's to regularise a single-storey outbuilding that was built within the grounds of the apartment building. You can see the location of the outbuilding, which is annotated on the plan here. So as I said, the outbuilding has been built, so this is a retrospective planning application to regularise it. So here are the elevations. So it's a stone-clad building underneath a flat roof. And here are the floor plans as well. It's going to have a flat roof and an artificial grass topping. So here are photos that were taken during the construction of the outbuilding. So this is a photograph looking northeast. So you can see the building in the backdrop. That's the neighbouring dwelling along St Anne's Road. And then here is a photo looking west. So this is, you can see to the left-hand side of the photograph, that's the neighbouring property along Queen's Road. So, as I mentioned, the application was first reported to the Planning Committee in March, and after some debate, the Planning Committee decided to defer the application for a site visit, and that was for members to consider the impact of the outbuilding on the neighbouring properties. The site visit took place in June, and at that site visit, it was noted that an air conditioning unit had been added to the outbuilding. And that wasn't shown on the plans that had been submitted with the planning application. So the applicant has since removed that air conditioning unit, so it's no longer on the outbuilding. So the application is now being reported back to the Planning Committee for a decision. And just to make members aware as well, there's been two conditions added from the previous report. So one is referring to no air conditioning units being placed on the outbuilding without the prior consent from the council. There is also a condition relating to the occupation of the building. So that condition limits the occupation of the building, use of the building to incidental and not as primary living accommodation or sleeping accommodation. So those are two new conditions that were added from the previous report. Thank you, Chair.
Thank you. Just unfortunately, we need to point out something that happened about the site visit and discuss the implications of that now. So I'm going to ask Kath Wallen to give us the legal perspective on that issue. Thank you, Kath.
Thank you, Chair. Well, you will all know that your decisions made here can be challenged. One of those challenges can be by way of a JR to the High Court. Now, people have to have grounds to be able to challenge and use that route. And one of the grounds is if the procedure that we've used is incorrect or faulty in some way. At the last occasion, in 4th of March, councillors voted to go for a site visit. The Constitution says that people, all of the speakers, relevant people, should be notified about that site visit. Unfortunately, due to an admin error, no one was notified, and members attended, carried out the site visit, and then returned. It was then that people realised that there had been this mistake. So we're in the position where you've had a site visit, officers can't reorganise a site visit to put things right because it's the decision of councillors to go for a site visit, and that's what they did. They went for a site visit. So it's up to you now as to whether the information that you have before you is enough for you to make a decision, or whether you wish to go for a site visit, knowing that procedurally, the matter was, we were incorrect before. I don't know if I can be further assistance, but perhaps you might wish to discuss whether you wish to go for a site visit first before moving on to discuss or to take speakers.
Thank you, Kath. This is certainly, I think, the best route, because obviously if we take speakers, they've had another turn at speaking, and if we resolve to do the site visit at some later point, then we've already taken a decision for them, if you like. So my suggestion is that we do have this discussion. When we have this discussion, we should be limiting it only to that point. So I'm proposing that we discuss. I'm not proposing a proposal. I'm asking you to make a decision. I think it needs to be collective. In many ways, we had a site visit. The report that's come back is quite substantially altered as a result of that site visit, but you will know that because you've read it. So I would like members to comment now. David Thomas, sorry, you're the councillor who's first put up their hand, and Paul Prentice is second. Thank you.
I only have one question, Chair. If we don't have another site visit, is there an opportunity or position, or does that put the residents in a position to take us to judicial review?
Thank you, Chair.
I think we should qualify it in the way that you have done to me on this occasion.
There's always a chance that someone will take a JR. Whether that JR will be successful is a totally different matter. And so, on any application that you decide here could well be JR'd. So, I can't say that they will take it. It's just that there's a procedural irregularity. At present, this is a matter for the councillors to decide whether or not they will be going for a site visit. And then after that, if they decide to go for a site visit, we'll discuss further afterwards. If they decide not to go for a site visit, they'll then discuss the application. And it will be at that point that people may well be able to speak. But it's not a matter of, there's not a matter of questions asked of councillors and questions taken from the floor.
Councillor Prentice.
Thank you, Chair. Without making any comment on the report, and I don't have any issue with the report that's come forward on this item, I would like to propose that we do have a site visit based on the fact that there were irregularities in the way in which the first site visit was administered. And I would like to propose that's what we do. That proposal is not based on anything within the report that's before us tonight. It's simply a matter of procedural regularity, and I'm interested to hear what other members have got to say about it. Thank you.
Thank you. Councillor Forrester.
Thank you, Chair. Again, caveating what I say, that I'm not commenting on the report itself, I would second Councillor Prentice's proposal that on an administrative basis, it appears there has been an error here, and I can think of further site visits should be proposed. Thank you.
Councillor Old.
Thank you, Chair. The error, if there is such a thing in this case, is that there was not equal representation of the applicant's representative and of the people who are objectors. I fail to see what me going to have a look again at the site is really going to add to my understanding of the situation, because I've had a good look I had the opportunity to look at it, and going again is not going to enhance my understanding or probably alter my view. But what might alter my view would be if I could hear the representations. And I wonder if we should concentrate on that rather than the physical necessity of turning up there again.
I mean, I think it is a difficult question. An error was made. It was administrative. It was not, an individual's fault. It was a chain failure, if you like. So nobody deliberately did that. There was also a confusion about the date anyway. So we didn't have the applicant either, or their representative. I do feel, personally, very similarly to Councillor Auld, that we thoroughly discussed all the points that had been raised at the committee meeting before, and this report reflects the fact that we did. And I think it was a very, positive visit, actually. I think we produced some issues that, we discussed at the time, and those people who were there know that. But it is really a committee decision, and if we do want to go for it, then obviously we have to have a proposer and seconder and take a vote. So, okay, did you make a formal proposal? I'm sorry, I don't think I re-recorded.
Councillor Prentice proposed
Did you
we
propose it?
reconstitute a site visit as
Right, fine.
Chair. We've accepted there has been an error, and I said there's been an administrative error. I then second that proposal that there should be a site visit to avoid the JR that's been set out.
Just getting advice. Okay, so we have a proposal from Councillor Prentice and seconded by Councillor Forrest. What we need to do is we need to have reasons for this site visit. No, it's not because of an administrative error. The committee needs to know what it's going out to do there, so we need some clarity. I suggest I need to let Councillor Prentice and Councillor Forrest say so first. Councillor Prentice.
I'm expecting Councillor Forrester will agree with the reasoning, but I'm not going to presume she does. In our own procedure, we stipulate that members of the public and other interested parties will be notified by the planning team of the committee's decision to go on site. Notification will give an approximate time of the meeting and also an indication where councillors will meet on site. It's not for the love of just going on site visits, much as though we do like going on site visits. It's because there's just an administrative error, and I think we just feel more comfortable with doing things by the book.
Sorry, if I can come in, Chair. I think I understand exactly why you have put that. On the last occasion, the reason for the site visit was so members could look at the impacts of the development. And so I think that members would actually be going to look at that impact again, because that's what they should have looked at before, they possibly did. And a secondary issue is the fact that you want to do things by the book, possibly.
Councillor Prentice did presume right that I agreed with what he said in principle. I suppose my reasons would be threefold. It's to look at the site as it is, to look at the changes that have taken place at the site as outlined in the presentation. The air conditioning unit has been removed, I understand. And three, to ensure that all parties can make fair representations to the councillors at that site visit and have adequate notice of that visit.
I'm not sure where I am with the next speaker. Councillor Naomi Smith, did you still want to? Then it's Councillor Mackenzie.
Thank you, Chair. A point that I was going to raise tonight was about, if they would if there was to be noise and light in this building, how would it affect the neighbours? Now, on the last site visit, I think we were quite focused on the air conditioning units. I don't remember having a proper good look at the distance between the neighbouring properties. So being able to go again would give me an opportunity to rectify that. Thank you.
Any other comments before I put this proposal? Councillor Thomas.
Sorry, Chair, to just to highlight the fact that, and correct me if I'm wrong, and if I make a presumption, your next sentence is, do we make it clear that if the neighbouring residents wish to speak at the site visit, they can't speak tonight? I mean, I'm not doing your job for you, but I'm just helping you along if I may.
Was the point I made at the beginning, David, which is that we're having this discussion now so that they can decide what they want to do. But obviously, if we would not have the site visit, we would be making sure that they knew that before they made a decision about whether or not to speak today. Councillor Stockley.
Can I just make another comment on it? I understand everything you're saying, but that doesn't always mean that the people that are speakers here do.
Thank you, Chair. I wonder, I was against this modification of our rules by limiting the number of speakers and the number of times they can speak. I understood that this was going to full council for debate. Where are we on that? Are we still trying to stifle speech and representation by banning people from speaking more than two times or three times? 2 times. And that includes site visits. I'm not happy with this. I've never been happy with this, and I suspect a lot of people on this committee are not particularly happy with it. I understand the reasoning when you see the number of people who'd like to speak tonight, but this is an area where free speech is important, and I think by trying to stifle it in this manner, I think it's wrong. I do understand we were going to discuss it at full council. I wonder where we are on that. Thank you.
Kath's going to answer. Kath Wallen's our legal officer for those listening. Thank you.
Thank you. I think that Matthew Archer is dealing with that, and we can certainly make inquiries of him and come back to you as to where we are with that. Councillor Stockley.
Thank you.
Right, so I think we should move to the vote on this. So a vote in favour is a vote in favour of another site visit. Thank you.
That's carried, Chair, with 7 votes for, 2 against and 4 abstained.
Thank you very much, everybody. So well, I mean, I'm presuming now that they either have the opportunity of speaking at the site visit, which will the date which will be notified to everybody, and we will not make any mistakes on this matter, and they can choose whether to speak at that site visit or whether to speak when this comes back to committee, which of course it will do after another site visit. Thank you.
Thank you. Speakers are allowed maximum of 2 goes. That's here at the previous meeting or at the site visit or at the next visit. So if people have already spoken and wish to speak at the site visit or wish to keep their powder dry and speak at the following one when it comes back, then they really probably shouldn't speak now. If they haven't spoken, don't want to speak at the site visit, don't want to speak next time, then of course, by all means, they're able to speak now. But the members will not be making any decision and will not be discussing the matter further. So we have the speakers. Mrs. Keith, did you want to speak? No? Okay, thank you. Councillor Cornell, did you want to speak? You want to speak today? And Mrs. Trieger, did you want to speak today or at the next occasion or at the site visit or? Okay. That does mean that you will only be able to speak site visit or the next meeting. Thank you. Okay, thank you. Chair, we've got Councillor Cornell wants to speak and Lucy Tregear wants to speak.
Thank you. Councillor Cornell.
Hello all. Thank you very much for your professional curiosity in agreeing for a second site visit. I think it's both a prudent thing to do, but also, as Councillor Stockley's identified, our constitution has some strange rules, which means that I've advised Ms. Keith that she may want to speak towards the latter end when you finally make a decision. But I think for me, it's important to effectively kind of encourage your professional curiosity on that site on a few further things. At the first time that I spoke at the meeting, I raised some issues with the report, and I'm pleased to say that the report that you have in front of you, I think, is considerably better. I think it doesn't overstretch in terms of its language, and it is far clearer in terms of the specifics of the site. Further, thanks to your site visit, there's been the, I believe, the disconnecting of the air conditioning unit, which you'll get an opportunity to look at the second site visit. But I think that there's a few kind of specific things which would be particularly useful to see in the report, and you may seek to clarify from officers as you go forward. The first is effectively a bit more detail on what the site history is, and what importantly the planning conditions were when the original application was agreed, both in terms of the biodiversity on the site and the drainage, and also the material finishes. Are the material finishes in the new application consistent with the conditions that we placed on the original application and the original building? I have some concerns that they are not. Secondly, can the report be more specific in terms of the size of the building and the dimensions compared to others? Our local plan prevents backyard developments because of the loss of amenity space to neighbours. And I think we need to consider what the precedent is if not only we agree to this one, but also, in theory, one or two others which might spring up in the other courtyards in and around the space, including some which would be on the roadside. Fourthly, is there some consideration you might go to conditions on removing the toilet? So the toilet would be, in my opinion, a feature of a primary accommodation. There is a recommendation here that you include a condition which will prevent overnight stay. I think we all understand how difficult planning enforcement is. You may choose to add a condition which would seek the removal of that and give you greater confidence that effectively the space was going to be used as a sunroom and not as a place of residence or overnight stay. Thank you very much.
The second speaker who wants to speak today is Lucy Tregear, the applicant agent. Thank you.
Hello. So this is something I'm not accustomed to doing at all. In fact, I'm shocked that I'm even here. However, firstly, thank you to the council and those here to review my planning application. I appreciate we're all giving up our evening for this. I would like to say I am truly sorry, as I didn't realise that I actually needed permission. This may seem naive, but when I viewed the flat, I was told by the developer that it would be fine, and indeed my new neighbours had discussed the same. I located the room with the windows facing in a direction so it wouldn't impact on their privacy or my own. We fixed their fence, and when the builders that were there, my neighbour at 45 St Anne's was so intrusive that I had to ask for her to no longer enter my garden without my permission. And when she spoke to the builders, she even went so far as to suggest that she would have different rights as she and her husband were civil servants. Moving on, I've done my best to accommodate all the requests subsequently, including the removal of the aircon unit, which in all honesty, I hadn't realised was as loud as it is because I was told it was a silent unit, which I've only used a few times since the installation. I've had an acoustics report which states that it's moved to another location. It would be within the permitted dB range, but obviously for the sake of goodwill, I've removed it as requested. Further, I think there is an element here of forgetting that I could be used the garden for use regardless of a garden room. I could be entertaining, I could enjoy the space with or without a garden room. It is a garden. So that's nothing unusual to make noise or local noise within the gardens. There are gardens that overlook. There's a kiddie area with a large trampoline at the other end, countless rooms. But within the actual block, there's not actually an opportunity for anyone else to build. I own the penthouse, which is 1,200 square feet. It's not a 400 square foot flat, so it's relevant. The lift is very slow. The door isn't automatic. It'd have to be propped open to carry drinks into that space. The two large balconies referred to previously are really obviously not. In terms of the loo, I'm 56 and I have a weak bladder and I would really like to be able to go for a quick wee whilst I'm downstairs. I have a dog. I know that sounds ridiculous. I never, ever, ever even considered it as an Airbnb. It's just wasn't in my train of thought. I used to live in a house. I got divorced 4 years ago and all I wanted was a safe place to live with a garden space. I have a dog and I just want to be able to go out there and enjoy the space with him. That's it. Nothing malicious or horse that bolted. It was a genuinely naive mistake and I am sorry for that. And I really appreciate it if you would stop putting me through this stress and anxiety that I've been suffering, because I really have. It's made me feel very unwelcome and like a villain. And that really was never my intention, so I'm sorry for that.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
And I'd really like to leave if I may, because I'm a bit upset. Okay, thank you very much.
Mrs. Keith, you are aware that if you speak now, you will not be able to speak at the next occasion or at site visit. You are aware that you are not allowed to speak from the gallery to the councillors. So if I may ask that you refrain from addressing them at the moment. No, there is no,
Excuse me.
it's not an question and answer session, Mrs. Keith. Thank you.
So the committee will now be moving on to the next item because we've agreed that will be a site visit. We have asked all the speakers whether they want to speak today or not, and we've dealt with the people who did want to. And so we now move on to item 7, which is application number CA 24-01903, north of Bullockstone Road. And Councillor Bothwell is going to leave the room. Thank you. We'll wait 1 minute. 1 minute. I'm going to ask Planning Officer Kerry Williams to introduce the report. Kerry, thank you.
Lovely. Thank you, Chair, and good evening, members. This is the application north of Bullockstone Road and the Canterbury Roundabout outside Herne. The application proposes 16 dwellings with green spaces and associated infrastructure. It also includes the provision of 5 units of affordable accommodation. The application has been reported to committee as a departure from the local plan as it sits outside of the urban boundary. So this is the application site outlined in red. The site is currently used as an agricultural field. And as you can see from the slide, that is surrounded by, or largely surrounded by, residential development. Next slide, please. This shows the overall layout of the site. The site is designed to be low density at 15 dwellers per hectare, and the dwellings have been orientated so that they sit away from neighbouring dwellings with a frontage created along Canterbury Road. The site is within the Herne Conservation Area, and there are 2 listed buildings within the vicinity of the site, and that's Walnut Cottage along Canterbury Road and Grove Farmhouse along Bullockston Road. Stevie. So this is the landscape master plan showing how the scheme will be landscaped, and members should note that there are 3 tree preservation orders within the site. However, these trees are to be retained. This slide shows sections through the site. The top one is a section from Canterbury Road, with the bottom 2 sections being internally within the site. These are photos of the site. The photos on the left are as existing, with the photos on the right being visualizations of what the site will look like upon completion. So I'm now going to go to the video. Thank you. So this is the new roundabout along Bullockston Road as a point of reference. The application is recommended for approval, subject to the conditions set out within the report and the completion of a Section 106 agreement to ensure that the site is suitably mitigated. Thank you, Chair.
Thank you very much. Adam Roke. We have one speaker. Adam Roke, would you like to come forward? Thank you.
Thank you, Chair. First thing I should say is I have a feeling that the visualisations and the street elevations are not the correct ones. I think they show 3-storey dwelling or 2.5-storey dwellings on the frontage, and in fact they're now 2-storey dwellings. Apart from that, the application aims to achieve 2 goals: to repair the streetscape following the imposition of the roundabout, which inevitably introduces a very urban element into the hamlet of Herne Common and the Herne Conservation Area. And secondly, to deliver much needed housing, including affordable housing. We worked at length with your Conservation Officer and Urban Design Officer and Development Control Officers to deliver a scheme which makes a positive contribution to the conservation area and to the streetscape, so as to reduce the urbanising effect of the new roundabout and restore some of the previous character of the Herne Common hamlet. So to that extent, I think the drawings as displayed to you do your officers down a little, because in fact they made us reduce the scale of those buildings on the frontage to the roundabout, to its improvement, I would say. So I'm grateful to the officers for their encouragement and help in delivery of a scheme that I think we can all be proud of. And I commend the officers' report and their recommendation to you. Thank you very much for your time.
Thank you. So on this item, we've got a recommendation of Section 101 grant, and in order that we can debate this, I put a proposal to the committee. I do propose that we follow that recommendation, but I'm doing this in order that the report can be debated. I haven't yet heard, obviously, what everybody's got to say in the committee, and I retain an open mind. So I would like to propose Section 101 grant and seek a seconder.
Seconded, Chair.
Councillor Prentice, thank you. So can I now open this up for debate? Okay, Councillor Jones was first.
Lovely. Thank you, Chair. Thank you for the report. First of all, I'd like to just ask the officer regarding the original sets of drawings for this site, the houses which face on to Canterbury Road, were they in a different orientated position in the first plan? And secondly, why would you believe that they have now been reorientated to face the road? Because that presents a significant problem, and I'll explain that if you're able just to answer that question. I know we're in presumption, and that's why we come forward and for this house, it's outside the local, the plan, etc. But it's quite a key issue.
Yes, let's have that answered. Thank you, Councillor Jones.
So when the application was initially submitted, the dwellings along Canterbury Road faced inwards. So they've now been turned outwards to create a stronger frontage along Canterbury Road and sort of better connection, is my understanding.
Okay, then that's what presents the problem. First of all, by fronting those properties onto the A291 right on that roundabout, that will encourage all delivery drivers to stop right on that roundabout to unload and walk up to their front doors rather than go into the access area. Originally, when this plan was first done and they were all facing in, everybody would have naturally come in to the side road. On your video, not your video, the video you've shown, it'd have been, if you'd have shown it from the other side where the road is actually going to go in, you would see my point. The A291, unfortunately for us in our area, is probably the fourth or fifth most dangerous road in Kent, hence why the roundabout was one of the major factors of putting it in, because we had more than one fatality, what used to be on that bend. And it seems to me, this is I'm really uncomfortable about, that specific, it will encourage drivers like Amazon, etc., which we all have, not to go into there. They will stop outside, bump the pavement, and you are right on that roundabout. An articulated lorry would come around there, you wouldn't even be able to get past it. So I'm still not understanding why we reorientated them to face out. That's my concern, and that's my real concern with this I know we're in presumption and we look at the tilted balance. I understand what we're trying to do here. But for me, I'm local, I live around the corner on our Rooses Road every day, 5 times a day. That is a problem which we're going to create. It doesn't need to exist, and I don't know why we turn those houses round. If they're facing that and the gardens are at the back, the entrance into the site, there's no reason for anyone to stop there. And that's a real health and safety issue as far as I'm concerned. I just wanted that noted, if this was to get passed, that significantly, that is for me a real issue. Thank you.
I'll just check out whether we've got any more to say about that. Just a second.
As part of the application, KCC Highways and Transportation have been consulted, and in terms of, the access and the site layout, they have raised no objections in that regard.
Okay, thank you. I read that and I totally disagree with that. Okay, I just want that on record. If this gets passed, the site looks good. There's a few other issues in there you could always pick up, but that's a fundamental health and safety issue. You only have to live there to understand what I mean. I'm not being perdickety or trying to be argumentative. You know what's going to happen. I know people are going to park outside there to try and get into there for deliveries.
Okay, thank you. The next speaker is Councillor Mackenzie. Thank you.
Okay, thank you, Chair. I would just like to seek some clarification on 2 points. So one would be amenities. So I've had a scan of Google Maps, and in the vicinity of this development, I can see 2 pubs and a cattery, a garden centre, and so I'm thinking somewhere else. I don't see any shops or any like dentists or pharmacies or anything for quite a way. So has this been considered, their access to amenities and infrastructure? And the second point was about green space. So it notes in the report that it has good access to open space, but and like I can see the green space on Google Maps, but like, is that privately owned? Would they actually have access to that? Is there current footpaths going through there? Would that green space actually be accessible to them? Is my question. Thank you.
Kerry Williams, can you answer that?
I'm not sure exactly where the public rights of way are in relation to the green spaces, but given the site location, there are open spaces nearby for the enjoyment of future occupiers. In terms of amenities, the report does acknowledge that the site is located outside the confines of a settlement boundary, but it is in close proximity to the village of Herne, and given we are in presumption, that's something that has to be weighed up in the planning balance.
Thank you. Councillor Naomi Smith.
Thank you, Chair. On the plan, I noticed these houses that face the 5 properties that face onto Canterbury Road with footpaths going up to them right on a roundabout are all the affordable housing. And it looks like there's some sort of hedge or something. I'm not quite sure what's going on behind. I presume there's rear access with these parking, which is a good distance away from number 12. The parking coming in off the access road. It looks like the affordable housing has been separated, in my opinion, from the rest of the development. It faces away from the rest of the development, the larger homes. And I do worry, along with Councillor Mackenzie, that where you go, apart from, if you come down your front path onto a busy roundabout, it's a very busy road, that road, a lot of the day and in the evening. Yeah, I'm finding it quite difficult just because of that. I feel we're creating a problem, and we know KCC Highways will approve things when when roads are not severe enough, but we never know what severe means. So I am troubled by this. And I think if we could sort of have the housing facing the other way, it would be safer for the residents. And then there would be, not this separation of the affordable from the market sale stuff.
Thank you for your comments. Have we, hang on a minute, sorry, I was writing a list and I've turned the page over to look at the map that you were speaking about. I haven't got anybody else. Oh, Councillor Stockley and then Councillor Thomas.
Thank you, Chair. I think Councillor Naomi is correct. It does look very much like segregation, and I believe that is in breach of our local plan. We can't put social housing in a ghetto, put a fence round it, and then pretend it's not there and stick it on the road. I don't think that's viable at all. I am very concerned about Robert Jones's point about parking. I'm also fully aware that there's also a cycle path stroke pavement which will be parked on. Expecting KCC to comment on this is naive. They don't comment on anything. Thank you.
Thank you. Councillor Thomas. We were just talking about these 2 or 3 points as well. In the sense I've got some advice. Can we just hold on and just take... Councillor Thomas.
Thank you, Chair. the acoustic fencing or the fencing, I believe, was put up there for a safety issue by KCC. And I know KCC are not commenting on his application, but we also have to consider that how have they monitored the road that technically isn't actually open yet. It's the future of the Herne Relief Road, which we put in several years ago. It's not linked yet, so it's not actually being used. So we don't know how many vehicles are going to be going down that road. So you could end up with articulated lorries with loads on the back of them. As you just turn into the junction, then you've got to swing a right to get onto the estate. If you once that Herne Relief Road, there's going to be a hell of a lot of traffic going down there. An articulated lorry will not have the distance to stop before it hits another vehicle. I actually do think that Highways has not had an adequate look at this, and they can't have a look at it because we haven't monitored what an impact on it's going to be on the Herne Relief Road, which actually isn't open yet. So we're granting an application on a road that isn't open yet, but we know it's going to be the relief road to take most of the traffic from going through Herne. So that's going to be the buses, articulated lorries, delivery vans, cars, and all of a sudden you've got a minute down the road and then you're going to have someone turning right. I think it's an accident waiting to happen. I'm not sure I can have that on my conscience.
I need to ask you a bit of clarification on that one, because you're saying that the road itself is an accident waiting to happen, or are you making the same point about the houses facing outwards? That's all I'm not quite sure about.
No, Chair. What I'm saying is we've got Highways, we're saying Highways is happy with it. What I'm saying is we are making a decision on a relief road that is not open yet. It's not finished. It's a route that I've been taking quite regular and coming through Greenhill. But looking at the application now, as you turn into that, you come off the roundabout.
I think we've got sufficient concerns on a very similar area.
But what I'm saying, the point I'm making.
I was just going to.
If you let me finish my sentence, no.
Yeah, no, I'm with you, but I was just going to try and say, I just didn't know if it was linked to the other points, but I get that you're saying that we don't know because the road isn't opened. But what I'm saying is there are highway problems. We're worried about the highway problems. Stevie has summarised them. We're worried about the segregation. We're worried about the paths going down to this main road, which, if it isn't even open, we don't even know what the concerns are. Stevie is going to suggest that we might want to summarise those as a reason for potential somebody wanting to defer. But can we just get the summary so we see where we've got to? Thank you.
Do you want the summary of my highways concerns?
No, if you could just let Stevie Andrews summarise where she thinks the collective of these are, and then we'll see whether we're happy with them.
No, thank you, Chair. So from listening to the debate amongst members, a key concern seems to be around highway safety, and there's 2 points to that from what I gather. So it's really the reasoning behind the fencing being put along the roundabout in the first place by KCC, and what the impact of removing that would have as a result of this scheme. So I think that's one point of concern from members. The other point of concern is around the locations of those dwellings fronting the road and the distance of their walkways and the proximity of those walkways and the frontage of those houses in relation to the pavement and the roundabout. So that's my understanding of concerns in relation to highway safety. So kind of two concerns around that, but also the relationship and the integration of those houses that front onto the roundabout in relation to the wider site. That's my understandings of the concerns being raised by members.
Now, Councillor Thomas, please come back here.
Yeah, it's more serious than that, I think. What I'm basically saying is, you've got this roundabout's a roundabout at the moment, and everyone's going into Herne because Bullockston Road isn't open. We don't know how many vehicles are going to be going down Bullockston Road, and this roundabout, you're literally going to turn as you're coming from Canterbury. You're going to turn so I'll get left and right muddled up. So you're going to turn left into it coming from Canterbury, and within a minute, you'll have vehicles turning right into the new estate. What I'm saying is that road will become the Herne Relief Road. So you will have so much more traffic coming down there. And if you've got the vehicles turning sharp left off the roundabout and then sharp right, I think there's a terrible safety issue from vehicles not being able to stop in time off of that roundabout, because they'll make their manoeuvre. If a lorry's behind behind two vehicles in front and say two cars, the car will brake. The lorry with a load on the back, or a dust cart or a bus, I don't think there's enough braking distance for safety reasons. I personally think it's an accident waiting to happen. Fortunately, having the roundabout has slowed the traffic on that approach corner. If we didn't have the roundabout there, I don't think you could put the houses in there ever, because it's so dangerous. But I think we're adding to that danger by allowing a right turn straight a right turn straight after a left turn off a roundabout. And if it's free from the left-hand side, the lorries and buses could come straight across there. And I pray, if this gets passed, I pray I am completely 100% incorrect. Thank you.
Councillor Prentice.
I'm not sure I entirely understand the objections, and it might be because I've misunderstood it, but looking at the existing houses on the south side of Canterbury Road, in other words, opposite where this development is proposed, there are, looking at Google Maps, for example, as we all do, there are, what look like Victorian and Edwardian properties that must have been there a very long time. They must be getting delivery vehicles, presumably not swinging into the driveways to deliver parcels and letters and so on. You also have the slowing impact of the bus stop nearby, which is, coming straight out of the development, turning left. There is an existing bus stop. You won't see that marked, I think, on the plans. So there is a sort of, we've talked about that slowing effect already, but there's traffic is being slowed in the area anyway. I don't have a sort of a problem with a natural slowing down of traffic caused by development. We're looking at a car driver problem rather than a housing problem. It's irresponsible driving which can be the issue, and not the proposed development. So apologies to my colleagues if I've misunderstood their concerns, but I don't quite see it the same way.
Hang on, just let me take anybody who hasn't already spoken. Have we got anybody who hasn't already spoken who wants to say something? Okay, in that case, Councillor Thomas, do come back.
I need to come back on Councillor Prentice. He obviously doesn't know the area at all. What you're talking about is if you're coming from Herne to that bus stop, yes, there's a slowing of that route. But when the Herne Relief Road comes through, theoretically, that's just going to be local traffic coming through there. The Herne Relief Road is a massive infrastructure for this council, for Herne Bay and Herne, to take the traffic away from Herne Village onto it. The slowing from Herne is correct. The properties, it's the traffic coming from Canterbury and all the lorries and all the buses. It's the major route into Herne now, or it will be once Herne Relief Road is finished. My concern is, and as for the representation of the other houses on the other side, there's a slip road. So delivery vehicles go down the slip road. So there's a no entry sign. You can go in one way. Yes, I agree. If you're coming from Herne to the roundabout, yes, I can understand that as there's more visibility. What I'm saying is when you come from Canterbury towards Herne, that's going to be such a rat run, and you're going to have vehicles turning down there, and I don't think you're going to have enough time. If a vehicle turns left off the roundabout, then turns sharp right, it's going to cause a major crash, in my opinion.
Councillor Forrester, I'm so sorry. Apparently I missed you. Sorry. Thank you.
No, thank you, Chair. It was just to follow up Councillor Naomi Smith's comment. I didn't know if we'd come back on the affordable housing being distinguishable, indistinguishable, less about them fronting onto the road, more about that separation from the market properties, and also the parking specifically for those properties appears to be, as Councillor Smith said, at the end of number 16, yes, 16, which is quite a walk from 12, and also means there's very little guest parking on the development for the number of properties there, when it's unclear to me if those 5 affordable houses will have allocated parking or it will be a free-for-all between those properties and other properties' guests, someone else who may just be using it for whatever they're doing in the vicinity. Thank you.
It does look like there's allocated parking on the other side, but I'm going to ask Stevie Andrews just to qualify.
Yes, thank you, Chair. So yes, we have the dwellings kind of along the side boundaries of the site. They have their spaces on site serving the dwellings, whereas there will be some parking bays along the access which would serve the houses to the front. In terms of the affordable housing, so the design quality, we would...
I'm sorry, I'm probably being really dense. Can you just say that again really slowly? Because I didn't quite understand what you meant by they've got where those allocated bays are. Sorry.
Okay, they're on the plans.
No, I've got the plan in front of me. Right. I'm just not following. And this may be because I'm a new councillor on planning, so please.
Okay, so the dwellings along the boundaries of the site, so not the dwellings fronting the road, the other dwellings within the site. So they have parking spaces within their plots. So they are to serve those dwellings. The 5 houses fronting to the road, so there's the access point, and as you come in, there are spaces along the access into the site which would serve those 5 dwellings. Hopefully that clarifies.
Are they allocated?
Well, that would that would be a matter for the developer to allocate those spaces and kind of regulate the space of those. Yeah, but in terms of the meeting KCC parking standards, that would be sufficient in terms of the planning application. Moving to your point in terms of the affordable housing, so absolutely there should be no distinction between affordable housing and market housing. That's not good planning, and we're fully aware of that, and that's a requirement of the policy, not just to provide 30% affordable housing, but also make sure that there's that cohesion across the site, so they're not easily distinguishable. So in terms of their design, that would follow the design of market housing. The design quality of those housing, the quality of those materials, we would not look for there to be any distinguishment between those in terms of the design and the material. So hopefully that clarifies that point, or possibly not.
Yeah, sorry, if I can just come back in on that. Because it seems that because they're facing onto the road, they very much seem that they're separated, whereas everybody else is looking towards a green, or well, you know, the green in the middle with the trees, whereas they have the back entrance, which is where people will get into their homes because they're more likely to park their car and walk along the path than to come in. So it does look like they are separate, the affordable. It just and therefore are distinguishable.
Yeah.
There's something that it
So
doesn't
can we
flow.
just hold on, because there are other people waiting to speak. Yeah. I understand you came in on that, and I understand other people have got the same problem. I think if we are thinking of a deferment, we definitely need to look at this sort of segregation aspect, as well as the fact of the way they're facing. But Councillor Buckman is waiting to come in.
It was on that very point, actually, about the park. You know, at the back of the gardens is parking spaces and cars. At the front of the house, you know, there's going to be a very big, and it is a fast road. There's no getting away from that. It is a really fast road, and it's very busy. And you're going to have when you have deliveries, they always park out the front, and they are going to be parked there. And if there's people walking along, if there's cyclists, that limits the space even further. And it does. It looks like a little island that's just been put at the end there. But, you know, you're not going to put a more valuable house right on the edge of right on the edge of a busy road. So let's stick the more affordable social style housing there which will be easily spotted with their different front doors, different outlooks. And unless we're really strong on this, I fear that will happen. And it will just make the people who live in there feel even more isolated. Thanks.
Thank you. I've got Councillor Jones. Do you still want to come back in next?
Yes, just
Thank
briefly,
you.
Although I've heard Councillor Buckman, I couldn't agree more with your comments about that. Yeah, mine, just to reiterate, I don't want to sound like an echo really. The A291 is the whole length, and not just this isolated spot, is it's one of the most dangerous roads, believe it or not, in Kent. The amount of accidents and fatal accidents we've had. That was the whole idea of the relief road, as Councillor Thompson spoke about, and having this roundabout was to alleviate, hopefully, you know, those kind of things. Councillor Prentice is quite right in his words when he says it's people who are responsible drivers, and I don't disagree with that. I know this road like the back of my hand, and where this houses are fronted, which this side, so delivery drivers are going to bump the pavement here. This is right on the roundabout. You're not even going to get another car. You get a bus come up behind you very quickly. You're going to stop local. I can't get in my brain how you would not have the houses the other way. You just do away with a problem that doesn't need to exist. That just goes away. That health and safety issue disappears into the night if everyone has to access the site, like everybody else, through the normal service road and then approaches the front door and delivers their parcel. This will create a potential problem, which then we'll end up putting lines on, we'll end up doing this, that and the other. I know the road well. I'm not, you know, I just want to say, just put it out there, it sounds like I'm being totally miserable. I welcome, you know, 30% affordable houses. Of course we do. And in this area, very welcome as well. But I think now's the time to have this discussion, and I believe to get this right as best we possibly can out of it. That's how I feel.
Thank you. Councillor Stockley.
Thank you, Chair. I'm going to go on about the same thing again. I would like to propose refusal. I feel that strongly. I think this is shameful, to be honest. I would hesitate to take that further because I'm feeling rather angry. But I would propose refusal of this rather than deferral, I find myself in the horns of a dilemma. This sort of development will, in its whole, help prevent large-scale developments like we've seen all over Herne Bay, which are very troublesome. We all know the stories. This would be a much better development, apart from the ghettoisation aspect. And I think anybody who can't see that really isn't looking. I propose we refuse this application here tonight. Do I have a seconder?
We've already got a proposal on the table, so we need to deal with that first. So first of all, does anybody else want to speak at this stage? Personally, I actually think that the point about the segregation of these houses is well made, and I think we all agree. No, I'm just summarising. Councillor Stockley was saying if anybody doesn't agree, I think the committee agrees. I think we've got two main issues, highways and the way in which this development is designed in these 5 houses, the facing of them, the separation of them, and what looks like, a poor design in relation to the affordable housing. Councillor Dan Smith, please come in.
Thank you very much, Chair. Just on, it's actually on one of the points that was raised earlier on, perhaps more minor than the other issues, which has been an interesting discussion. But the footpath issue that was mentioned for people to go out and enjoy the countryside. I mean, from my recollection, Braggs Lane and into the Thorndon Woods is just on the other side of this roundabout, and there seems to be no provision for ability to cross this roundabout, which you would need to do to access that countryside and that road. So perhaps the ward councillor for Herne would clarify the point if he agrees with me. But that is my recollection of this road. You need to actually cross from this block of houses, cross the road to the other side, though, and I think has been well made by Councillor Jones and Councillor Thomas that this road is quite dangerous. I mean, how dangerous is? I mean, I went to Home Primary School many years ago, and one of my friends was killed along this road, so I know what it's. It's been dangerous for years. So it's so. The roundabout does slow the traffic a little bit, but all those extra houses in the Herne development will impact that in the future. And Councillor Thomas was trying to make that point. I think that there's going to be a lot more houses and a lot more usage on that point, and I don't disagree with that. So the highways aspect of this is certainly problematic. The orientation of the houses and the parking there is something that's fairly easily resolvable if they turn the houses around. But I think the actual road itself is quite problematic.
I don't know whether you were actually asking whether Councillor Jones had any comment to make on that, or it was rhetorical.
Yeah, it was sort of rhetorical, but I would be totally happy if Councillor Jones would chip in for his view on that, as he lives in the area.
Yeah, you can literally cross opposite the road, walk round the corner, and you have to cross back over to Braggs Lane. However, you can walk up the footpath with the new development on your right, round to where the fencing is, and there's a little service road which has been put in to serve the houses along there. You can cross there, which in front of the houses, which then would walk you straight into Braggs Lane. But you have to go not the long way around, but it's a different way around to it. It's not, if you know it, you know it. If you don't know it, you'd be crossing 2 roads, yeah. Okay.
Councillor Mackenzie, do come back in.
Okay, thank you, Chair. I was wondering if you could just lay out our options here, because I do agree with Councillor Jones that it'd be very unfortunate to lose affordable housing, but I think Councillor Stockley is also right that it's just really terrible seeing this kind of segregation. So what are our options here? Can we defer this and bring it back at a later date? Like, do we refuse it? Do we accept it? What are our options here? Thank you.
We've got a proposal to accept the 101. We need to vote on that. We can defer. Obviously, we can take a proposal to refuse as well. So that, I think, let's take the vote on the first one. I don't think people are minded to go for it anyway, so I'm not expecting it to fall. But let's just take the vote because it's a formal part of the process. And then we can take further proposals. Excuse my voice, it's just the tail end of a cold. Can we move to, Lauren, can we move to the vote, please? Thank you. And a vote in favour at the moment is a vote to section 101 grant. Yes, by Paul Prentice. I'm voting against it.
That's fallen, Chair, with 8 votes against and 4 abstained. Now 9 against, 3 abstained, sorry.
Thank you, everybody. So that's quite decisive. Okay, proposals. I'd like to propose deferment. Sorry, Councillor Stockley. Do I get a seconder? Councillor Naomi Smith or Dan Smith seconding? And we've got, I think, 3 main reasons. So can we just go over them?
In my training, I was told that this committee was not here to amend plans. You either accept what is in front of you or you refuse it. You don't defer it so they have another go. You know, we need to send a strong message that this isn't acceptable, in my view.
I'm taking advice from the planning officer sitting here, and the possibility of deferment is on the table, and we've got a seconder. So that's where I am with this. I totally understand your anger about the issues. I think there are issues. However, you know, there's also some good sides to this development. You know, not least the numbers of houses on the site. What do you call it? What do you call it? Density. Yeah, not least density and the need for affordable housing. Councillor Thomas.
Sorry, Chair, I missed that. Where are we now? We're going for
I have proposed a
Oh, you have?
deferment. Sorry about my voice, it's not clear.
Okay.
A deferment.
Okay.
And I've got Naomi Smith seconding it.
Okay.
And so
I
that's
missed
what,
that bit out. That's right.
that's what we're now.
So you did it yourself?
I
Thank you.
did. Yes. So what I want to do is just have a look at the 3 reasons I think we've got. And I'm just going to ask Stevie Andrews to read them out to you because I think her voice is a lot clearer than mine tonight. Thank you.
Thank you, Chair. So from the debate from members, there seems to be a concern around highway safety, and that is in relation to the layout of the site, the proximity of particularly those. From the debate, it's these 5 road-facing dwellings that are the issue from the debate. So the highway safety concerns around the proximity of those dwellings to the road. So going back to KCC for some clarification around that and some of the issues that have been raised by members. So that's one reason. And then the second reason is the design of the scheme in terms of those 5 dwellings, their relationship with the road and their relationship with the wider site. That is my understanding.
The applicant as well as KCC.
Yes, that would be, yes. So clarification from KCC and also looking at the layout in terms of the whole site, yes.
Okay. Councillor Thomas.
Can we also have clarification if the fencing was put there for safety issues or sound reduction, and if it's removed, then obviously the safety issue that was there in the first place is no longer there.
Thank you for remembering. We did absolutely say that. Thank you. So we've now got 4 main points. And as far as I'm concerned, I think that's quite a good summary of where we are. But does anybody have anything to add, which are reasons that may be looked into while we have a deferment? Because we don't want to come back and defer again. We've made that mistake before. We really, really want to be thorough. And I think we have been pretty thorough. But Councillor Thomas.
Sorry, did we also discuss the fact of separation from affordable to the general thing? Yeah.
I personally just checked that myself, and Stevie says that wording does include integration, not just the layout, but the integration of those houses as well. Thank you. So Councillor Stockley.
We'll get off this horse eventually. I'm just wondering how this came through, because I'm sure in our local plan we are not allowed to pass plans that segregate our social housing, basically, affordable housing. How did this get through to this stage, to come to this committee, when it's obviously not within expectations? You know, this is obviously a plan that has gone through many hands, and yet this is the first time it's ever been raised. I find that difficult to understand.
Stevie will comment.
Okay, thank you, Chair. So yes, obviously we did give consideration to this, not just in terms of the numbers being provided, but also making sure that they aren't easily distinguishable in terms of materials and design. But obviously a new issue has been raised by the committee about their layout in relation to the wider site, and there being that perception. So that's something we will take away and we will relook at, but it's certainly not the intentions of planning officers to not implement the policies of the council. And also in terms of distinguishment between market and affordable housing, there's multiple considerations in terms of that, as I mentioned before: quality of materials, layout, making sure that the design is very similar to market housing to ensure that there is that integration, that consistency across the site. But we would take this away if the deferment carries through, and we will report it back to the planning committee when we can.
So I think we should move to the vote on the deferment for those reasons, including the point about the fencing. And if we could move to the vote, Lauren. A vote in favour is a vote for deferment, to have a look at those matters, see if they can be resolved.
That's carried with 9 votes, Chair, for deferment, 3 against.
Thank you very much, everybody. So we need to move on to the next major item. Sorry?
Oh, yes. Don't forget that.
I haven't got there yet myself. Which one are we on?
Yeah, could we please have a 1-minute comfort break? Would that be all right?
Excuse me, members of the public, you're not meant to be talking to any councillor while they're in session. Thank you.
Yeah, if people need a 5-minute break, but please make it quick. We don't really want a long break at this point, but that'll be fine. Go ahead. I don't want people feeling that they can't relax. Everybody back? Yes, thank you. We're on application 8, application number CA 24 00714, 43 Warwick Road, Canterbury. Can I ask Kerry Williams to introduce the report, please? Thank you.
Thank you, Chair. Oh.
Got a very slow computer going on here, but at least it's working.
Great, thank you, Chair. So this is the application at Warwick Road in Canterbury. The application proposes the demolition of 12 garages and the construction of a 4-storey building containing 11 flats. The scheme is 100% affordable housing. The application is being brought to committee as is a council application. So here's the application site outlined in red. It is within the urban area of Canterbury, and there's, as you can see, there's different types of residential development within the vicinity of the site, including flatted development. This is the proposed block plan. The parking is located to the north of the site, and with the building being located centrally within the plot. I believe there are footpaths going on to Nonsuch Close to the south and Babs Hill as well to the northwest. And this is the eastern elevation, with this being the northern elevation, showing the relationship of the site with the adjoining development. And again, this is the south elevation, showing the relationship with adjoining development. And again, the west elevation with adjoining development. Video, Stevie.
And we don't have any speakers on this. As you say, as you've heard, it's brought because it's Canterbury City Council. I would like to propose the recommendation grant. Do I have a seconder? Oh, everybody. Councillor Dixie. And please do speak. Thank you.
Yeah, as our officers have said, this site is in the ownership of the City Council. We should take pride in the fact we're not selling it off for what would be a considerable capital sum, and we're going to be build apartments for affordable rent. I hope you'll all be able to support this.
Thank you, Michael. I think I've got Councillor Mackenzie, Councillor Thomas, Councillor Bothwell and Councillor Prentice in that order. Thank you. No? Councillor Thomas, was it? Yeah.
If I'm next to it, I'd like to. I'm not against this application. There's two comments I want to make. I'm not 100% sure I like the design. Moving forward, that's what we've got. Is there provision for waste storage on this site? Because we have got another site in Warwick Road with flats along that as you come into Warwick Road, and there are waste facilities there, but they were open, and I've actually seen fly tipping occur there. There was a gentleman dumped a washing machine there once. I did query it with him, or I think it actually was a dishwasher. I did make him take it away, but then they got fencing. But unfortunately, the gates aren't always locked. But around the whole of that area, i.e. Kent Avenue, I can't think where I'm working now, because I work along that whole area, but there's quite a lot of facilities. I can't think of the name of the road I want to speak now, but basically there is a terrible issue with fly tipping on all the council sites with the waste bins. So is there facility for a lockable section to put wheelie bins in there for security and stop people fly tipping? Because the residents across the road think, oh, it's empty, and there's lots of students there. There's a lot of students there, housing, and they'll see an empty area, they can dump some of their waste, and they'll put it in there. And we do get a lot of people driving around and dumping waste in there, and I have seen it, I have reported it, and I've confronted them.
Councillor Bothwell, I think.
Thank you, Chair. Yeah, firstly, I'm very much in support of this development in principle. It's good to see new council housing being built. But I do have a question about clause 37 of the assessment, referring to Stodmarsh, which says that the proposed building will be used as social housing provided to those on the council's waiting list already living within the Stour catchment, and as such, the development would not result in any net increase in effluent being discharged to the public sewer, thereby avoiding any likely significant effect on Stodmarsh. I fail to understand that, because this is a new building, and presumably the residents will be coming from other existing buildings in the district. So this, from my point of view, would result in additional effluent being discharged to Stodmarsh. Because those houses they come from are going to be occupied by someone else, presumably.
Just looking up the point about the point made earlier about the bins. So we haven't forgotten that. We're just trying to find some of the design information for that. And on this one, I don't think this is worded very well, but I'm just going to ask Stevie to explain.
Thank you, Chair. So yes, this is a council development. So there is a local lettings plan that has been drafted for this site, and what that will do is limit the occupation to potential tenants that are on the waiting list that already live in the catchment. So they'll simply be moving within the catchment from one place to another. So there won't be any net increase in terms of the impact on Stodmarsh because they're effectively moving within the catchment. And what we're considering under the habitats regs is the impact of this development on Stodmarsh. And because of that restriction in terms of who can occupy it and that being limited to the catchment area, then there will be no net increase in the impact on Stodmarsh. So we've got that as a condition, condition 11, and that would obviously be managed by the housing team. But that is a condition that's been put on, well, recommended as part of this application.
Can I come back on that?
Yes.
I fail to understand that at all because, as I just said, these people will be moving from existing housing into this new building. The existing housing that they're in currently will then be occupied by someone else. Therefore, there will be a net increase in effluent to Stodmarsh by the number of people occupying this building.
Thank you, Chair. So what we are considering is the impact of this development. So the proposal is for this apartment building. That's what we are what we are required to consider under the habitats regulations is to assess the impact of this development on Stodmarsh. And as I said before, because we're going to be limiting the occupation of those apartments to people that already live within the catchment, then there would, in terms of the impact of this development on Stodmarsh, then there would be no net increase. And we have consulted with Natural England on this approach, and they've raised no objection. And so on that basis, we've adopted the appropriate assessment that there will be no likely significant effect as a result of this development on Stodmarsh. I hope that clarifies the point, Chair.
I simply don't accept that. It's gobbledygook. Absolute gobbledygook. Doesn't make any sense at all.
The next person is Dan Smith. Thank you.
I was just going to say I absolutely agree with Keith on that one. This had eluded me for when I read it first time, and I mean, to me, if you're building a new building and you're providing more accommodation, then you've increased the number of people and you've increased the building. And that seems to be what we've done here.
I think we need to obviously make our own minds up. I hear what people are saying. I think we've now got several people waiting to speak. So I think Councillor Stockley's next.
Thank you, Chair. I'm just wondering, going on from what Stevie said, leaving aside the mathematics of the madhouse, we're going to presumably borrow a significant lump sum to build this establishment. It appears that most of our residents won't be eligible to live in it because of this strange arrangement that we have to come from a catchment area which does affect Stodmarsh. So people from Herne Bay, for instance, who don't affect Stodmarsh won't be able to move in to this property because Herne Bay is divided in half. Half of it goes to Stodmarsh, half of it goes into the sea. So if they move in there, then obviously there's a gain or an increase in the waste that's going to Stodmarsh. So are we saying that the number of people we have on our waiting list will be disadvantaged in as much that they will not be able to move into this property because of this strange Stodmarsh arrangement? I really don't understand it. It's plainly obvious. So going over it again, if you've got a block of flats and you build another block of flats, unless you're going to knock the first one down, you've got a net gain. You've got an increase because you're going to move people into the first block that have moved out for the second block. You know, it's mad. I don't accept what Steve is saying. I understand it's a clever way round a sticky problem, but it doesn't make any sense.
Does anybody else want to speak on this issue? Okay, that's fine. Then it's now Councillor Thomas.
Comes up quite quickly. The question is about I'm assuming you're meaning that who's going to move into these properties must be homeless or surfing, what they call, sofa surfing. That's the only way it will work. Otherwise, you've got, as everyone keeps saying, if you've got 20 people going into that property and they're coming from 20 houses, then people moving into those 20 houses are going to increase the Stodmos scenario. So, it beggars belief.
Councillor Mackenzie.
Thank you, Chair. So, I quite understand this because I have, in my casework, helped many families who are in social housing who have overcrowded households. They have adult children who are already living in our district who want to move out into their own council house. So they would still be in our district, just to spell it out for you. Thank you.
Next person is Councillor Buckman.
So actually, I was just going to carry on with what actually Councillor Mackenzie said there about about overcrowding and like Kent Home Choice, and you know, there's probably a number of people on the waiting list that don't meet the banding, and so they might well be living in a house that's overcrowded, but they might only need the meet the sort of 1 bedroom need and not the 2 bedroom need. So to be moved on, obviously they would need an extra bedroom, but might not meet the banding criteria to bid on other things. So I do think there is the overcrowding thing, and it is a case of how you look at things, isn't it? I mean, it is, you know, in one way you look at it as you're moving someone on, and then someone's going to be replaced and still create the same, but it could mean something else as well. We obviously don't know, but having this social housing, having this housing here, gives people this option, and I think the option of having it far outweighs the option of not having it. Thank you.
Thank you. And Councillor Prentice.
Thank you, Chair. Moving on from Stodmarsh. My question, I have two actually. One is about the access to Babs Hill, obviously quite a well-loved and well-cherished open space nearby. I've had sort of confirmation by email today, or notification by email that there will be access routes to Babs Hill next to the site. Can we just have sort of some confirmation really that will be maintained and be retained? Because obviously we want to ensure that not just existing residents, but new residents will continue to have access to open spaces. Oh, the second one. Yeah, sorry. There was a second question as well.
It was, yes. Let's have it.
Second point, just briefly, was really around, just to be absolutely clear on whether people coming into this development would be from temporary housing or non-temporary housing. So are we looking at moving them from overcrowded temporary housing, which I'm hoping we don't have much of, but that was just really just so I can be absolutely clear. Thank you.
I think we're now trying to clarify the bin issue still. Have we got that bit yet? Yes. Kerry? So Kerry Williams can answer that one. Thank you.
In terms of the bin store, there's an independent bin store south of the parking area. I mean, in terms of the comments they made about it being lockable and so on, we can deal with that by way of informative.
Right, thank you, Chair. Okay, so taking the point around the access to Babs Hill, so my understanding is there are 2 access points that kind of bound the site along the side. So the main access, I understand, is the one that runs along the houses to the south. There's a footpath that runs along the houses, and then there's an access point at the end of that footpath. That is going to remain open during the entirety of the construction. The second one, which is just north of the garages that are going to be demolished, that will obviously need to be closed for a period of time, given the construction demolition works that are going to happen. But that will be reopened, and I understand there are going to be improvements made to that access as well. So during the entirety of the construction, there will be one access point that is still available to members of the public, and the other one will close.
Is it this P1?
Yes,
Yeah,
that's right.
It's that little one at the top of Warwick Road. It's a little one at the top of Warwick Road. The lower path is Nonsuch, and then the other one is at the top of Warwick Road. So on the little drawing, it's got a P1 on it. That'll be the one that would be improved.
Yeah, so that's going to run along the back of the parking spaces. So yeah, that will be improved as part of the redevelopment of the site. But the other one will remain open throughout the construction. Thank you.
At the housing, and just say, we can't say who it'll be. But
Yeah, no, we can't confirm who will be on that waiting list, and then this development will be available to them. So no, we can't confirm that, but there will be people that are on our housing list, and it will be in accordance with the lettings policy that a housing team puts in place for this site. Thank you.
Oh, sorry. I think it's Councillor Thomas and then Councillor Stockley. Thank you.
Can we just confirm about the waste bins? I just know you're going to have an issue, and I can't remember what the officer's wording was, but can we make sure that it's a lockable, secure, which actually all Warwick Road is, but some of those lockable parts are actually broken now. So you get a hell of a lot of fly tipping around there. I'm just trying to solve a problem that I know is going to happen.
Great, thank you. So yeah, as Kerry confirmed, we can put an informative on, and we can speak with the housing team as well, because really the concern is around the security of that, isn't that? So we will put an informative on, asking the housing team to give consideration to the security of the bin store.
Sorry, can I jump in again? Sorry, I've just thought about something else. You mentioned security, because the other ones have got cameras around them. Is this site going to be cameraed? Security cameraed?
That would be a decision for the housing team in terms of their operation of the building, but that wouldn't require planning permission in any event to install cameras to the building. So
Could I suggest we have that minuted, that I've suggested putting cameras around there, because it would solve a lot of problems, and especially on the waste parts here, all the other ones have got it. So if it could be minuted, please, Chair, that I suggested that we have cameras around the site, that'd be great. Thank you.
We have got that recorded in the meeting anyway, so that we don't tend to minute every single point. I've had a bit of a debate about this, actually, about planning minutes and how much we ought to write, but, it is all, those points are all recorded, but I just see no reason why we shouldn't take that one forward.
I do get that, Chair, but if I could, I don't request anything to be put in the minutes, but if that could be put in the minutes, I would appreciate it.
They will speak with housing on this one. Oh, Councillor Stockley.
Thank you, Chair. Very briefly, I am in favour of this development, even though I sound relatively negative. I just want to confirm that Stevie, I believe, said that only people in a certain geographic band will be able to be housed in this building. So does that disadvantage any of our residents who are not in this geographic band, i.e. Stodmarsh or non-Stodmarsh? Does that make sense? Thank you.
I think the wording does need a bit of amendment, so just bear with me. Okay, the way it looks in the condition is what we need to look at, because those two paragraphs can be read the way I think we've all read them, as slightly contradictory. It does effectively mean, I think, what you're fearing, because the local lettings plan for the site, which will be a plan for this site specifically in accordance with this report, will say they've got to come from the Stour catchment area. So that will limit who can go into it, but that's the way we get them built, because we can't make any detriment to the Stour catchment area. So I still think, you know, it's arguable, but I think it's certainly clearer now which way round it is. Councillor Thomas.
Surely working on that policy, if you've got someone that's in an overcrowded house, that people, I use mine as an example. I've got a son who lives with me and a granddaughter. So basically, if he was looking to move into that, he couldn't, but technically he can in some respects, if you want to bend the rules even more, by saying he's not actually affected by Stodmarsh because he's not using the toilets as much as what we are anyway. It kind of, I don't know. It doesn't seem fair. Thank you.
That's the clarification. That's what it is. And that's what we're recommending in here. And Councillor Stockley, you want to come back?
Yeah, sorry, Chair. I'm very concerned that we are, as a council, borrowing what will be a vast amount of money to build these things. It's coming from somewhere. And yet our residents, our council taxpayers, our people we're here to look after, a large majority of those will not be eligible to live here. You know, I don't see how we're going to square that circle. Thank you.
Councillor Forrester.
I've heard everyone's concerns, but I suppose it seems to come down to, if we build these houses and tenants have to be in the Stour catchment, those outside the Stour catchment will be disadvantaged by not being able to apply. If we don't build, then everyone will be disadvantaged. And I think, therefore, it's quite clear to me which is the worst option. Some residents benefiting rather than none.
I would like to move to the vote on this. I think we should take the concerns back to the housing team. I think we need to think about what we're doing, but hopefully, as far as we're concerned, at least we're clear what we're voting for now. I do think the wording in the actual paragraph was misleading because it could give us either interpretation. Lauren, can we move to the vote? A vote in favour is a vote to grant. Thank you. Oh dear.
That's carried with 11 votes, Chair, and 2 abstained.
Thank you. Thank you, everybody. So we move on to application number 9. it's number 9, application number CA 24-01313, land at former Sturry Road Social Club, East Street, Canterbury. Could I ask Kerry Williams to introduce the report, please? Thank you.
Lovely, thank you, Chair. This is the application at the former Sturry Road Social Club. Oh, sorry, Phoebe.
Oh, it's not just me.
Thank you, Stevie. So this is the application at Sturry Road Social Club. The application proposes 11 chalet bungalows, all of which are to be affordable rent. The application is brought to planning committee as it's a council application. So this is the application site outlined in red. It's within the urban area, and as we can see, it's surrounded by residential development, with the access being off East Street to the north, the site. Please. This is the site layout. Parking is retained within the site, and the dwellings are orientated inwards. These are the eastern elevations and the western elevations, and the southern elevation. Oops, sorry, the northern elevations and the southern elevations of the dwellings proposed. Sorry. Yes, so it's considered that the site is suitably located for residential development and is recommended that the scheme be granted subject to the conditions set out in the report. Thank you, Chair.
Again, this is brought because it's a Canterbury City Council application, and I would move the proposal to grant. Do I have a seconder? Thank you, Councillor Mackenzie. We have a seconder. So could we debate this, please? I will leave it open. Who would like to speak first? Councillor Stockley.
Could I suggest we go straight to the vote on this one, unless anyone has any objections?
Councillor Bothwell wants to speak.
The same clause that was put in the previous application is in this application about the Stodmarsh pollution. And I think it's disingenuous of the authors of the report to put that in the report. It's not actually true. And I'm very uncomfortable voting for this with that in the report. I mean, I would personally want to defer it and get the report rephrased and be honest about the real impact. That clause would only make sense if all the new residents came from overcrowded houses, and that them moving into this new development would not result in any additional people moving into the place they came from. So that needs qualifying, I think. Secondly, I think the amenity space for the houses on the north side of the development are totally inadequate. The depth of the gardens are only 3.5 meters on one of those, and they're between 3.5 and 5 meters at the back. And the recommendation is that back gardens should be at least 10 meters deep, and have a minimum area of 50 square meters. Whereas those houses on the north are only about 20 square meters. So much as we want to build new council housing, and I would fully support that principle, I don't think this current proposal is providing decent quality housing in terms of the amenity space for those new residents. They will be crawling up the walls because they haven't got space to do anything in those spaces. And I think we should be proud of the new council housing that we are building, and we should be providing decent amenity space for those tenants. So I can't support this application.
Does anybody else want to comment on that? I mean, it is a good point. As I understand it, there isn't an actual requirement for what did you call it? The gardens. I think Stevie can clarify.
Sorry, just to clarify, yeah, there's no policy requirement in terms of the depth of garden required. There's a policy in terms of like the quality and the kind of the functions that a garden should be able to offer. And just to, it should be in the planning history, but a material consideration is the planning history and what has been granted planning permission previously. And planning permission has been previously granted for 10 dwellings. So this is an uplift of one, just to make members aware of that. But yeah, in terms of the depth of the gardens, there's no policy requirement.
Councillor Dan Smith.
Just to that point, on the size of the gardens, I think probably all of us are aware of houses which have smaller gardens than these. I certainly am in Canterbury of one of my friends who has a garden much smaller than this. So I think that's not something that particularly concerns me in this particular issue. Thank you.
Well, shall we go to the vote as has been proposed? Yes, we had a second. Councillor Mackenzie, wasn't it?
I do second that, Chair.
Yes, I've just been asked to check. Thank you. So a vote in favour is a vote to grant this application. If we could move to the vote, Lauren, thank you.
That's carried with 11 votes, Chair, 1 against and 1 abstained.
Thank you very much, everybody. So we're moving on to the item 10, which is the application number CA 24021111, King's School Recreation Centre, St Stephen's Road. Councillor Buckman, I think you're leaving for this item. Thank you. Kerry? So Kerry Williams is going to present this report. Thank you. Are we ready?
Lovely. Thank you, Chair. Lovely. So this is the application at King's School Recreation Centre. The application proposes 3 paddle courts and a canopy. The application is reported to planning committee because it's been called in by a councillor. The main points of concern are impacts on light pollution and noise disturbance. So this is the site plan outlined in red. The blue line shows the wider ownership of the applicant. The courts are to be located in the northwestern corner in the hatched area. And with this slide showing the layout of the 3 courts to the left side of the screen. So this is the canopy where lighting is to be located. Lighting will be downward facing and internal to minimise any light spillage. So this is the next elevation showing the eastern side. The next one is the northeastern side of the canopy. And finally, we have the northwestern side. This is where the acoustic fencing is to be located. And this ensures that noise impacts are negligible as per the noise report. Now we go to the walkthrough. So it's recommended that the application be granted subject to conditions for the reasons set out in the report. The impacts upon light pollution and noise can be mitigated. Thank you, Chair.
Thank you. We do have 4 speakers on this item. And can I ask Philip Carter to come forward, please? Thank you.
Yeah. Okay. Good evening to you. I speak on behalf of Square One Paddle, which is the operator that proposes to operate at King's School. Just to say, Square One is Kent-based paddle club. We are there really to promote health and well-being and building a stronger community through paddle tennis. Now, you may know paddle is fast growing. It's a very sociable sport, easy to learn, and is played in doubles. It's inclusive by nature. It's welcoming players of all ages and abilities and backgrounds. At Ashford, we've got 6 courts, and we have over 3,000 active members, but include families, more mature adults, and those with disabilities. We are quite excited to bring these same benefits to Canterbury, where at present there is no paddle courts available. Residents will have to go over to Wye or come to Wye or Whitstable, which limits access for many. And we believe paddles should be local, inclusive and accessible.
We identified King's School Centre as the ideal location. The site is centrally located, walkable and already home to existing sporting activities. The proposal has really good backing from the national bodies, the Lawn Tennis Association and Sport England, and back to subject to some community use agreements. We are mindful of concerns raised by neighbours, particularly those related to noise and light, and I want to reassure you that paddle generates less noise than sports such as five-a-side football, netball or even tennis, particularly because it involved softer equipment and a slower pace of play. The courts will be fully enclosed by curtaining, which significantly reduces any external noise. Lighting will only be used when the canopy is closed, preventing light spill. And in conclusion, the proposal brings a wide range of benefits. A new inclusive sporting facility at the heart of Canterbury, better use of the existing underused courts, enhanced provision for the King's School and the local community, and importantly, promotion of health and community cohesion and economic activity. And we hope you recognise the positive social health and community impact of this proposal, and we respectfully ask that you support the officer's recommendation to improve the application. Thank you very much for your time. Thank you.
Thank you. And our second speaker is Stephen Bamfield. Please, if you come forward. Thank you.
Thank you, Chair. With respect, the issues are not simply noise and light spill, although there are two of them. I speak, as will Dr. Felicity Carrier immediately after me, representing the Spires Action Group. You see us here. The contentious new game of paddle is doing untold damage to neighbourhood environments and particularly to mental health up and down the country. The main cause is noise. The sounds of impact, ball on racket, ball on wall are repeatedly described as being like close-range rifle shots. The BBC has highlighted this menace, and noise is the primary reason a number of councils have recently rejected planning applications. A Guildford councillor claimed the level of paddle noise is above and beyond any level of sport. One paddle court manufacturer recommends a distance of at least 100 metres between paddle courts and the nearest residential buildings, whereas a rejected application in Bath had the nearest dwelling only 3.5 metres away. 53 The Spires in Canterbury, the house you see there, is almost as close, 4 metres from the proposed structure, 4 metres. This house is mentioned nowhere in the planning officer's report, nor in paragraph 2.4 of the King's School's own submission, a misleading absence so early in that document, I think you will agree. Illustration 1 shows the house. I'm coming to illustration 2. Noise is only one of the reasons for rejection of the present application. Let's briefly look at them all. I'll do the next one and then Dr. Carrier takes over. Loss of light and overshadowing. The pedal courts are going to be almost 30 foot high at the end closest to the housing, and at least 7 dwellings will suffer severe loss of light from a southeasterly direction in a total of 16 rooms. The domination will be monstrous. And we note that no artist's impression of the finished structure was included with the plans. One of the people who wrote in objecting specifically asked for that. It has not eventuated, and so we did our own, and we are not allowed to show it, I have been told at the beginning of this meeting. We have it, if any councillor would like to see, we have many copies of it. 4 rooms in 53 of the Spires, including its living room, will be badly affected. In flats 47 to 52 of Holters Mill, right to the left of it from which that photo was taken, 2 bedrooms each, many used for desk work, will suffer. See illustration 4, if you can get that in time, please. That one. That's the view from flat 52, Holters Mill. That shows the second floor. I can't show the effect of the paddle court on that view, I'm afraid. I'm not allowed to. 1 floor lower, the sky will be completely blocked out to the cloud line. See illustration 6. things will be worse still on the ground floor. It is difficult to understand how the first sentence of paragraph 13 of the planning officer's report could possibly have been arrived at. Thank you.
Okay, to continue.
Just give me a second. Apologies. Yes, please start. So we've got now Felicity Carrier, and she'll speak now for 3 minutes.
Thank you. So continuing from Stephen's points, talking about the effect on listed building and conservation area. So the sports centre itself is not within a Canterbury City conservation area, but the properties immediately adjacent are. These properties have repeatedly had their requests for window replacements repulsed by the council. Yet here is an eyesore about to be built right next to them, destroying cathedral views for many dwellings and making a nonsense of the spires of the road name. Although there is no planning right to a view, we draw the council's attention to planning application CA 2102443, whereby a proposal to build a 5G mast in the New Dover Road was refused as an alien and prominent form of development, which would result in harm to the character of the street scene, having an unacceptable impact on a World Heritage Site. It is hard to see why these points would not be relevant in the current application. The King's School stated in its original planning application that balancing the harm of the visual impact with the benefit of the sporting facility was the central planning consideration. We appreciate this acknowledgement of harm, but we're unclear as to how this was actually considered, especially in view of the various alternatives that are available. The next to talk about noise. This will be an enclosed structure, which calls into doubt the relevance of the calculated noise level increase provided by a report on the council's website, which was drawn up using an open-air paddle court for its decibel measurements. Enclosed ball noise and shouting will be more reverberant than in the open air, which will take the sound level over the recommended limit. Moreover, these noisy hours of play are proposed to be much longer than the current levels of the use of the tennis courts and will continue long into the evening, which brings us to light pollution. One of the technical information documents states that the canopy will be made of opal fabric, which allows for either 60% or 20% light intrusion, depending on which type is chosen. So at least 20% of the bright light necessary for after-dark play will escape into the surrounding housing areas, doing so at an elevated level where the effect will be concentrated on bedrooms. This is already too much, and 60% would of course be three times worse. And finally, we want to talk about community well-being and responsibility to voters. If this plan is granted, it will have a dramatic effect on the mental health of its neighbours and the well-being of the community. We were disappointed that despite recommendations from paddle manufacturers for community consultation, King's School have made no contact with any of the properties affected until one resident was visited yesterday, but this was only after they requested a meeting. We hope that both the council and the King's School will consider their duties towards the resident community, rather than reinforce an existing public opinion that the City Council prioritises the wants of the school over the well-being of its voters. Thank you for listening to us today.
Thank you. And our final speaker is Councillor Alan Baldock, who's the ward councillor. Thank you. Alan, come forward.
Thank you, Chair. And you'll know that it's rare for me to sit here and make comment at Planning Committee. But sometimes I feel that you need to. And this is one of those occasions when you do. When we look at any planning application, there's some basics, isn't there? There's the context and setting and the character of the things that we look at tonight and for every night. Basically, this development fills up an entire broadly 4 pitches with a structure, a solid wood white structure, some much taller than a house entirely. That whole area is blocked by one very large white tent, taller than the house, right back from the spires, right the way through to the back of the existing sports centre. It is a huge structure. None of us can argue about the benefits of paddle and sport and all the rest of it, but this is one of those occasions when I feel this is completely and utterly not in context. This is a huge structure, way, way out of proportion with the site. And I think that this is a very bad decision to allow this one to come forward. I would simply ask you to look at this as a whole. Look at this as one very large white tent of a building taller than a house over a huge area, plonked in a, backing onto houses on two sides and a sports pitch on the other. There are other locations within the King's School grounds that this could go on to, but it is chosen to go here. That's their decision, not our one tonight. So I've just asked you to look at this as a whole. This is a big thing, a big site, and it's incredibly disruptive for people's lives, I feel, for now and for many years to come. Thank you.
Thank you. I'm just getting some clarification on the height, and maybe we can get have a look at a couple of the photos, if we can find them. If we could just find them, that would be helpful. Just give me a second. As you know, we've got slow computers. Could you just hold on a sec? Okay, we're not getting them up that quickly. So, Councillor Thomas, did you want to speak?
Yes, please, Chair. I've got a couple of questions, to be perfectly honest with you.
Could you please put the pictures down, because we're actually trying to run a meeting here and not to be distracted. Thank you. Councillor Thomas, yes.
Yeah. Basically, we've got paddle in the rugby ground in Whitstable, and that doesn't seem that intrusive as what this seems to be appearing to come through. That's an observation, so I don't know where the height comes from, unless it's 2 stories. I don't know. Also, the gentleman who the applicant was speaking, and he said he's going to put curtains up. But as I understand paddle, you can bounce the ball against the wall, the glass wall, and play on the game or something. I've just seen it on the TV. Obviously, if there's curtains on the window, then it won't bounce off the wall. So I don't know whether the curtains are going to be on the outside or the inside. Thank you. If there is curtains at all.
Yes, I must admit, I thought it was bouncing off walls, and I couldn't understand that either. So I think we may need some clarifications here. Yeah. Councillor Mackenzie.
Before I ask my question, Chair, can I just check, did we do a formal proposal? Because I might have missed that.
I haven't, because what I was trying to do was just clarify this height issue, because there seems to be differing report. As Councillor Thomas said, the fact that it is this high seems a bit of a question. So it's a question I thought we ought to answer, because we ought to be informed about what height is it we're actually talking about. Unfortunately, our computer system, Councillor Boss, question.
Thank you, Chair. Yeah, I had a question about the enclosure. Someone referred to the fact that they had walls, but I'm not sure. Is it just a canopy with an acoustic wall one end, or is it a canopy with walls as well? Is it like a building, or is it just a canopy?
I agree. We do need clarification, because we did talk about curtains, and we did talk about, and that doesn't quite make sense. So we need to understand this. Hang on, I've got lots of people. Okay, Councillor Mackenzie, do you want to come back?
Yeah, so I still had my question. Sorry, Chair. I was wondering, I don't know much about paddle, but does it even need a canopy, like to play the game? Like, if the canopy was taken away, would it still be able to go there? You know.
Well, I think it's an all-weather kind of idea, this, but I also sort of think that it keeps it contained, doesn't it? So, but anyway, let's hang on. Councillor Stockley, I think, is next, then Councillor Old.
Thank you, Chair. This was a complete mystery to me until I went to Vietnam. It's amazingly popular in Vietnam. They're everywhere. I think there was a tax breaks or something, but they are literally, in the area I was in, there was about 6 courts, 6 buildings with courts in. I am concerned about the height. I had to look up what 30 feet was in metres, and it's apparently 9.1 metres. So that is considerable height. I don't know whether giants are playing this game or what, why we need 9.1 metres, I don't know. But it acoustically, from my experience of observing it rather than playing it, I didn't find it amazingly obtrusive, but there again, I didn't live right next door to it. So I do agree we need some more clarification, and if we can't get it tonight, I think we must defer it. Thank you.
Councillor Old.
Thank you, Chair. Could I ask, could we find out if the design is going to be similar to the one at Chesfield? Because if that's the case, then we could go and have a look at the one at Chesfield, which would provide an answer to all those problems.
Yeah, I mean, I think we need to consider whether we need a site visit. I'm hesitant to say that because we seem to have so many at the moment, but at least it would be an opportunity to meet the developer and find out answer to an awful lot of questions and clarification of some of these things that we're talking about, because many of us obviously don't. I mean, we haven't been to Vietnam. We don't necessarily know what this is. We haven't been to Chesfield site either. Anyway, no, I'm not joking, really. I think we may really need to get some questions answered. So I think I've got Naomi Smith first and then Councillor Thomas.
Thank you, Chair. Can I propose that we have not just a site, I mean, we could site visit to the King's School, but we really need a site visit to look at what a paddle court does, the structure that they're going to build, because I presume they're all quite similar. I might be completely wrong on that. So we can understand what the noise is that's being made. Because I can go to the King's School and say, yeah, well, that's the wrong place for it or the right place for it. But I don't know how much noise they do make. But you hear a lot of reports that they do make a lot of noise. And I think I just want that clarification.
Okay, I think it's Councillor Thomas now.
Thank you, Chair. I mean, I can only go on what I've seen at the one in Chesfield next to the rugby ground. They were put up. I saw them being built actually, and then they were completely encased in glass with a solid roof on top. They're not as high as. I mean, they're not. They didn't appear to be. They're not as high as what the actual rugby club is. So, and that's not particularly high. So to me, it only, I don't know, I don't want to say that out of the hell because I get it completely wrong, but they just seemed a self-contained box. This looks like they want to put X amount of courts in an area, and it actually doesn't seem like it's going to be enclosed. It looks like they're going to be open courts, in my impression, and then they're going to put a canopy on top of that so you can, and if it's going to be opened and not actually encased, then the noise level is going to be horrendous because you're going to be bouncing the ball all over the place. I can only assume, well, they have said it's similar to squash. I have played squash. Yes, it gets quite noisy. So a ball bouncing and you can bounce it off the glass and play the game on. It bounces back, then it lands in it and you can play the game on. So that's how paddle works. I can only suggest the ones that are in Chesfield. I mean, I technically wouldn't need a site visit at the King's School. What I would suggest is the King's School, go back, look at the ones they've got in Chesfield, where they're all self-contained and not so intrusive, and then they put another planning application for what they should be applying for. Thank you.
I think we've got someone with the height. Just a sec, Councillor Mackenzie. Can we put it up?
It's there. It's on my screen. Wait
Can
for
we
it to go there?
Can we get it up?
Here we go. Right. Okay. So yeah, the canopy structure, it's kind of in 4 elements. So the 3 elements closest to the neighbour.
Sorry, nobody can hear me. Okay, so I'll start again. So we've got the nearest neighbour to the left, that's along the spires, and then we've got 3 elements closest to those which project beyond the rear building line. But then you've got the 4th element at the back, the furthest away, which projects deeper into the site. So that's an aerial view of it. Then this is the southwest elevation. So you can see the 3 smaller elements, and then the 4th element is the deeper element, so to speak, the furthest away from the spires. Then this is the view. You can see the nearest neighbour at the spires, and this is the height of the canopy in relation to that neighbour. And then this is the other side. Yes, it is taller. And then here you've got the context of the recreation centre at the back that it's next to. So you can see the ridge there and the roof forms. It's kind of a section through showing you the building, the recreation building next to that. In terms of construction, what I understand it to be, as Councillor Thomas said, it's a glass enclosure at kind of ground level. Then there's a tight-knit mesh above that, and then there is the canopy roof. That is my understanding of the construction. And in response to the noise impact assessment, you can see on this plan here, it's the white section. I think it's numbered, I'm not quite sure what that number is, but you can see the white section at ground level. That's the acoustic barrier that the noise impact assessment has recommended in order to mitigate the increase in noise that's been assessed through the noise impact assessment. So that's my understanding in terms of the construction, and that barrier would sit just outside of the canopy itself. It wouldn't be part of its construction, it'd sit outside. Hope that clarifies in terms of the construction of the canopy.
Councillor Jones, did you want to come in now? Yeah.
Yes, thank you, Chair. I, having seen the photographs that the gentleman brought in earlier, to give you a perspective of how close the building is potentially to this new construction, I think Naomi Smith, Councillor Smith's suggestion about a site visit may be helpful for people to understand the impact that will have directly to that property. That is really close. At the moment, looking at the pictures, I don't know the site that well, so that would be for me useful. But at the moment, it's an open tennis court by the looks of things. That the whole area is like an open court, and obviously they play ball there, and we'll have and this structure, which I don't know exactly what the height is, compared to their house, will be almost like, without seeing it, a big blot on the landscape. I'm not against sport or anything like that. Keep fit, and I think the sport is a mixture of tennis and squash. I think that's the idea of it, and it's played with a hard racket. So obviously that's where you get the sound impacts. But I think the wider issue is, yeah, we want obviously to encourage sport and what have you, but I think it's really important that we're clear in our minds the impact it will have on that side, or, you know, on the development. That maybe something could be done or adjusted to help with that regarding the whole size, the courts they're trying to put in. There may be a reduction in that, I don't know, but I think it's really close to that property, and it worries me, I'll be honest. Thank you.
Okay, I think next I've got Dan Smith.
Thank you, Chair. I'm just also slightly puzzled. Several people have mentioned, I know nothing about paddle, but the glass, the walls that are bounced off, and there's 3 courts. So are these walls going to be inside this larger canopy as well? So you're going to have an increase of noise across the whole canopy with different walls within it for the different courts? Or is it, or am I misunderstanding completely how they're going? Do you see what I mean? If you're having a big canopy, but inside 3 courts or 4 courts, wherever, then each court would be enclosed and with its wall, if it's...
I think we were seeing a row of courts.
Yeah, but all within the larger canopy. So in effect, you're having an echo chamber for a large amount of noise from different walls within it, in effect.
It's 3 courts in total.
Yeah, and are they all within the canopy? So they are. And
They're all within the canopy and they've got glass
they all
partitions.
they all have separate glass partitions.
Glass.
Okay, so in effect, you're creating.
We're getting there with
yeah.
the...
Thank you. Yeah, it's a lack of understanding on my part, but thank you.
So the next person is Councillor Stockley.
Thank you, Chair. Would it be helpful if I proposed a site visit incorporating, unless it's already been proposed and I lost the will to live? Would it be helpful?
Propose it.
I would like to propose a site visit incorporating both the actual game and indeed the site in which this is proposed. Thank you. 2 site visits.
Naomi Smith has seconded that. Naomi, you were the next speaker, actually. Did you want to say something?
No, I absolutely second that. We can move on. But Chesfield, I've got the plans up, is 11 metres high at the centre, at its highest point. So it's higher than what's proposed here.
It is.
Yeah. So there you go.
Yeah, we're definitely talking high. I think Kenzie next.
No need, because I was just going to second a site visit. So that's fine.
In that case, Councillor Thomas.
Sorry, Chair. I mean, it would be helpful for members to go and look at Chesfield, because I think basically what Chesfield is a solid, contained structure in its own right. And then they paddle in there. I think they've got 3 courts in there. But so what I'm saying is, unless I don't understand it correctly, basically you've got 4. How many courts there are, but you've got a complete glass box court, and you've got X amount of those, and then over that you've got a canopy with a bit of netting in between it to let all the noise out. Well, if you enclose the whole section with a solid roof, each court in its own right, and it may be financially not viable, I don't know, but the one in Chesfield, if you put 3 or 4 of those anywhere, I don't think you'd have such an issue, in my opinion.
Does anybody want to speak before we vote on the proposal of a site visit? The only bit I'm not so sure about is whether we can actually determine whether officers then take us to actually see the game. I don't know. When you said incorporating the actual game, this is a site which has tennis. Just a second. I mean, I personally think we can't ask officers to take us out to sea paddle boarding, but obviously.
We know what you mean.
Don't. Hold on. We can't do that, but we obviously know there is this site in Chesterfield. Maybe somebody could put that address around to everybody. The other thing is the site visit would allow us to discuss it all with the applicant or their agent, whichever. So I think that would help with that. Councillor Prentice.
Yeah, it's just to sort of endorse the idea that as councillors, we go under our own steam to go and see a paddle tennis game being played. I also think it's quite important because I suspect this won't be the last time we see a paddle tennis court application coming forward in the district, given how popular it is. And I've got no issue with it being popular or promoting sport. We just have to be very mindful of our residents and the impact it has on them. So, yeah, just to endorse that point, because I agree with you that we can't really be asking officers to do something that's not strictly related to an actual physical planning application location. Thank you.
Paul, one's being mooted for Victoria Rec at the moment.
Proves my point precisely.
Well, I think we need to inform ourselves about this, but I think the only way we can do that in relation to this application is to go along with the recommendation for a site visit. So could we move to the vote? And a recommendation 4 is a recommendation to go on the site visit. Thank you, everybody.
That's carried unanimously, Chair, with 12 votes.
That's great. Thank you very much. Dan needs to come back in. He's here. Great. Need to move on, swiftly on. So we've got the application, so item 11, application number CA 22-01584, Hoplands Farm, Island Road, Hurston. Stevie, we can't do it without you.
Oh, yes, you can't, can you?
No, we can't do it. We can't do it with. Before speakers leave, could you hold on? Could you come back? Not run back, but just stay there. We just want to clarify speaking rights because we've had a lot of confusion about this. I'm going to ask Kath Wallen just to tell you what your speaking rights are. Kath, thank you.
Thank you, Chair. You will be notified of the date of the site visit. You might be able to, with Chair's consent, speak at that site visit at pointing out relevant parts, facts. You won't be able to speak to the merits of the application, but because you've spoken once tonight, you won't be able to speak at the next meeting if you speak at the site visit. Thank you. And I don't think you can get back out that door. You have to go this door.
Right, as I said, we should be moving swiftly on. So we've got item 11, which is application number CA 22-01584, Hoplands Farm, Island Road, Hurston. I'm going to ask Kerry Williams again to introduce the report. Thank you very much. Thank you.
Thank you, Chair. So this is the application at Hoplands Farm. It's an application for full planning permission for 59 dwellings with access, parking, amenity space and landscaping. It's been reported to the Planning Committee as a departure from the local plan. So this is the application site outlined in red. As we can see, it's well located in relation to the existing development at Hurston. It also forms part of the Hoplands Farm site, which was approved in 2016 and includes facilities including a food store, medical centre, a nursery, a dentist and community building. Next slide, please. So this is the site layout. The 1 and 2 bedroom units are largely to the north of the site, with the larger 3 and 4 bedroom units being to the south. This fits in with the existing approved development. The density is also similar to that already approved. This slide shows the house types that will be used across the scheme. And I think now, is this a walkthrough one, Stevie? Yeah. So it's recommended that Planning Commission be granted for this application for the reasons set out in the report, and also securing a Section 106 agreement for additional contributions towards primary and secondary education, community learning, children's services, libraries, adult social care, to mitigate the impact of the additional dwellings. Thank you, Chair.
Thank you. We have one speaker for this. This is James Waterhouse, the agent. Come forward. Thank you.
Thank you, Chair. Good evening, everybody. I think you have before you a really good, fair and accurate committee report, and I don't have too many comments on that. I think the report accurately applies the correct policy approach to this application. The site does technically fall outside of the settlement in terms of the adopted local plan. However, in reality, and you might have got that impression from the video, this is in a central location in Hurston. It's next to the approved neighbourhood centre. It's near bus stops. It's a very sustainable location for development. And it's within an area of the Hoplands site that was zoned for residential development in the outline planning permission granted back in 2016. The scheme maintains the 30% affordable housing provision that's been secured to date in the wider scheme, with a location, design, unit mix and tenure of affordable housing fully agreed with the established registered provider, West Kent Housing Association. As members may deduce from the 2022 application reference number, this application has been a long time coming. Like so many residential schemes in the district, it's been stuck by nutrient neutrality issues. However, over this period, the applicant has worked hard with your officers and with Natural England to try and secure a solution. And I would contend that the solution that's been secured does actually serve as an exemplar case study for others to follow. And I'd finally add that this application will help to complete what I consider to be a really excellent new development. It represents the final phase of the applicant's scheme, and I think it is both the applicant and the registered provider's intention to complete this development expeditiously as possible, should planning permission be granted this evening. Thank you.
Thank you very much. So I'd like to propose the officer's recommendation in this application, and with the usual provisos about listening to the discussion, which is authority being given to the head of planning to grant subject to legal agreement and safeguarding conditions. Do I have a seconder? Dan Smith, thank you very much. I have a seconder. So we can now debate this proposal. Councillor Mackenzie.
Okay, thank you, Chair. I wanted to ask a question about infrastructure, really. So in the previously approved outline permission for the other application, there was a food store, a medical centre, a dentist, a pharmacy, a nursery, a convenience store. I'm nearly finished. A commercial estate, community building, and harvester promised to be provided by the developers. Houses have been built there. More houses are currently being built there, and we are tonight being asked to approve more houses to be built there. But none of that infrastructure or amenities that were promised years ago have been built or are being built currently. Councillor KG Moses and I regularly get residents complaining to us about the lack of local services and the additional demand on already stretched infrastructure by new housing developments. So can we please condition this application so that if it gets approved this evening, that some of that previously promised infrastructure and amenities can be delivered before any of these new 59 houses are occupied? Or if not, what else can we do in terms of this application to help speed along some of that infrastructure that is desperately needed? Thank you.
Harry, can I just, can we clarify? You're saying that there are infrastructure parts of the sites that have already been started, is this correct? That haven't built certain elements, or are you wanting to make sure that we condition this one to have the contributions made at certain trigger points? Because we would do, but it would be a part of the Section 106 agreement. So I just want to, I wasn't quite sure, because I think you said something about what's already happening. And of course, the thing is there as well, if there's failures to do it when they've met the trigger points, obviously we should be doing something about that. So that, so could you just explain a little more where you're coming from here?
Okay, my point is that in the previous application for the Hoplands land, they're like the houses that have already been built and are occupied, the houses that are currently being built, all of that infrastructure that and amenities that I listed were promised like years ago now, but none of it has been delivered yet. It's essential infrastructure. There's very stretched infrastructure and amenity access in the area of Hurston. We get complaints from residents about it quite regularly. So if we were to approve these houses this evening, could we condition it so that some of that infrastructure at least has to be there before these new houses are occupied?
Thank you, Chair. I'm sorry, just clarifying a point. So, yes, the outline permission included the facilities and the provisions that you outlined. So they were accepting the principle of those services and facilities within the site. Subsequent reserved matters approval has been granted for those. You'll see those in the list in the planning history. There is also in the planning history the application for the food store as well. That's still under consideration at the moment. That was submitted in 2022. So in terms of the delivery of those facilities and services, now that's controlled through the legal agreement that's connected with the Section 106 on the outline. So that will set out the trigger points at certain numbers of occupations that those facilities and services need to be provided. So that's secured through that original outline permission. We've obviously got these additional houses that are proposed within the same site, and we've consulted with KCC in terms of any financial contributions that would be required to mitigate the impact of this development in its own right, which they've come back and said that off-site contributions will be required to improve local services and facilities. So we would, if members resolve to approve, then we would be securing that again through another legal agreement to make sure that the impacts of this development is fully mitigated as well. Hopefully that clarifies your point. Thank you.
Dan Smith, thanks. Councillor Dan Smith first, then Naomi Smith.
Thank you very much, Chair. On that point of the trigger points, can I just ask, Stevie, if the trigger points were based on percentages from the original application, or if they were based on housing numbers, occupants? Because I think there's considerable difference, and obviously when you're amending the houses as you go along and increasing them, it changes.
We will come back.
So it would be the number of occupations. It will be.
Councillor Naomi Smith.
Wearing my hat as chair of planning subcommittee, should this be something that planning subcommittee should look at in detail to make sure that we're hitting the targets? Because it sounds like we might not be. Yeah.
I think, Harry, it's your patch, isn't it? So I think what would be good is for Harry to write to Stevie about the concerns that people have got and get an answer on that. Because if it is in fact the case that we haven't hit the targets and we're not building the things that we should be building according to the report, we have a monitoring system and a monitoring officer, and it should be happening. So I mean, we can't really conflate this, but we should take account of it and take account of what's being said. And it's just whether people are understanding that correctly or whether we're not chasing enough. Sorry. Yes, and Stephen wants.
Great, thank you. So yes, unfortunately, I don't know all the trigger points off the top of my head, but I will clarify those with you and make sure that I put you in contact with the monitoring officer. But we do monitor the delivery of these services on the site, and we work closely with the developer to make sure that they are delivered. So we'll just clarify the position, and I'll come back to you.
Yes,
okay?
I think that. Then, because you'll then watch, keep an eye, won't you? Where was I? Does anybody else want? Councillor Dixie.
All right, thank you. On page 91, under River Stour IDB, what's meant by the requirement for land drainage consent for any increase in rate of or volume of water being discharged?
Councillor Dixie. Paragraph number?
It's not numbered, it's under consultations on page.
Okay, thank you.
On page 91.
Yes.
So they're comments from the River Stour Drainage Board. So separate to the planning process, the applicant will need to get consents from the Drainage Board, and that's where they need to get their land drainage consent from. So in that case, I think the River Stour IDB are just making the applicant aware that they need to follow that process post-planning.
I think it was a tie. Councillor Jones.
Should have been Dave's much better looking than me. All it is, Chair, really is to say on the plan where we can see here indicative, there's footpaths what obviously lead off to, looks like it encapsulates like a walk around the site. The reason I'm flagging those up, just to ensure that when they're constructed, that they're constructed with a solid surface of a bound gravel as a minimum, unlike some sites I've been on or local to me, where they've put the footpaths in, it's just made out of type 1 roadstone, and you can't walk on them, you can't push a pram on them, and they are there as a hard surface, but they're virtually
Yeah,
new,
I think we need to do this on every site, don't we?
yeah, just to ensure that that is a solid bound surface.
And Councillor Thomas.
I'm going to struggle to explain it properly. But when it comes to the trigger points, if we're saying that they've built X amount of houses and haven't put the infrastructure in, say because they haven't hit the targets, then us allowing them to build further up the road means technically they haven't got to do those they say for instance they've got to make 200 houses, so they've built 199. They hold on that site because they've all of a sudden got this other site to open up. That site may, what we're talking about, may have to do it after 200 houses. I can't remember what the numbers are. But we're kind of, they're kind of, because they're moving sites, they're kind of moving the goalposts. Or does the Hopland site overall, as this is part of it, if they build, say, 200 houses on this new site, does that come into configuration for the other site as well? Does that make sense?
I think I do get what you mean, yes. So, yeah, the legal agreement and the trigger points in relation to the outline, that relates to the 250 on the site. See, this is a pocket within that site. It's going to have a standalone, separate planning permission if members resolve to approve the application. So that will be subject to its own mitigation, which is outlined in this report, and that would be secured through another legal agreement. So there would be the legal agreement that covers the whole outline site, and then there would be another legal agreement that covers this site for the additional 59. So across the site, there would be 2 legal agreements that need to be met, the trigger points, the financial contributions. Yeah, there would be 2 against this site.
So they could get to the first application, build X amount of houses and go, do you know what, we'll start on the other site now because we've got to put the infrastructure onto that one now. So we've just allowed them another 50 odd houses on another site, which they can build separate from that one and still not putting the infrastructure into that. So if we refuse this application, it may force them to build the houses quicker and put the infrastructure in. But as it stands at the moment, they've technically got another site to start again on. But that's planning.
Do you think we're getting into a speculation too far? It might be to do with the time of night. We can't.
I'm perfectly clear. I may not put it over very well, but I'm perfectly clear on my understanding.
You
of
are,
what
but
I'm
it's
actually saying.
You are, David.
I'm not
but it's-
speculating. I'm putting an example out there that we could, if we grant this, we could actually be reducing slowing the other site down. It's planning because they're 2 different sites. This is why every time we get an outline planning application, I never like them.
I say it's speculation because we don't know that would happen. We could find ourselves in all kinds of things, but more importantly, my point was about speculation is because we haven't got the information about whether any of these trigger points have been missed. We don't know yet because we haven't had that communication, and we can't take account of, a guess about whether that's happened or not because of a suggestion. It may well be that residents have complained, but actually the trigger points are being met, or it may be that they're not, in which case we can get onto it. That's all I'm saying. We can't take it into account in making this decision today. Seriously. It's just, okay, well, I won't use the word speculation, but it's just one idea you've got about the interrelation between them. It may or may not be true. So I think we just need to be clear about what we can take account of. Is it possible to move to the vote, do you think? Then I think we should. So I have proposed that the officer's recommendation is agreed. So the vote is to vote in favour is to give authority to the head of planning to grant subject to legal agreement and safeguarding conditions, some of which we've discussed. Lauren, can we move to the vote? Thank you.
That's carried unanimously, Chair, with 13 votes.
Thank you very much, everybody. We've got a planning appeals report, item 12. Steve, is there anything to add? Any questions on that from anybody? That's brilliant. We need to note it by general assent. Oh, sorry, you do have a query. Dan.
Not on this. Let's do the general assent. I had a point that I wanted to make after that, if that's possible.
Okay, let's do the general assent first. Could we agree the appeals report by general? Thank you very much. And there's no urgent business to be dealt with in public, but you wanted to raise a point, Dan.
Yes, it was actually to do with the social housing outside of the Stour catchment area, which I think Councillor Stockley raised. I think it's something that perhaps which should be mentioned to Cabinet to have a look at that issue, because I think it does create an unfairness to the areas which are outside the catchment area. So it may be something that perhaps social housing of the future that's put in Herne Bay or Whitstable or outside the catchment area is reserved for areas which are outside the Stour catchment area until you equalise the two. Otherwise, you're getting this imbalance in taxpayers. And I'm only putting this forward as something that perhaps should be discussed at Cabinet level or to sort of think about.
I mean, I do think we had a lot of concerns about this condition, and I think that we should raise it in another forum, because it's not really something that we can continue to discuss here. We have approved those. There is a remaining issue and concern that people have got. So, yes, I suggest it is raised through channels, maybe Cabinet, whatever. Thank you. Yes. One last question.
Could I have a date or clarification when we next look at coming out of presumption or in presumption?
Actually, we asked for a report. I will remind Simon. We asked for a report. It should have been in the minutes of the last meeting. Done?
I'll check.
I'll discuss it with Stevie now, and we'll make sure that both of us remember to chase that report. And that report should also have, it won't be soon, I can honestly say that, David, because it's an annual review, so it doesn't happen very quickly. Even if we get new figures, we still have to wait for. So what we've asked for is a report from Simon to give us the background to being in presumption. Peter Old asked for it last time, and we haven't had that. And it will give us the whole background about how the figures are calculated, when they change, and where we are now. And sorry. Did you? I thought it was Simon. Okay. Well, we'll get it written. Yeah. Thank you for reminding us about that, because it is a case that we asked for it last time. So I'll clarify that with Stevie now, and we'll make sure that we get that report. And otherwise, there's no other business that falls under exempt provisions, and we close the meeting. Thank you very much, everybody. Thank you.